So normal woolly buggers are cool and all, but what about something a little smaller for maybe smaller fish? That's where the micro woolly bugger comes into play. This little guy right here is what we're going to be tying today on the Craycraft Experience. Stay tuned. So with your bead on your hook, I take some thread here. I'm using UTC Ultra, size 70 near and black. Take some thread, wraps backwards, and snip or break off your tag end. Next, take a small piece of marabou. Make it about the length of the hook, or I like to make it, maybe sometimes a little longer than that hook shank. So measure it out. I take a couple wraps, first two being a little bit loose, and then I really like to hammer down on those to lock that marabou fiber in place. And then I take a couple extra wraps. And then I like to twist my marabou, usually if I'm not going to use it as a main body, and I twist it and snip it as close as I can to the hook. Makes it a lot cleaner tie-in point for the next step. Next, tie in some small gold wire or silver if you're going with a silver headed bead. And I like to kind of start my wrap and then put the wire on the other side, and that'll come in handy later when we counter wrap over the hackle. Go ahead and take rearward wraps until you get to your tail and then stop there. Now grab some small chenille. I've got black here. You can tie it in right behind the bead. I like to do this when I've got a gap between my marabou. Take wraps rearward, locking that in right up at that same point where we stopped with our metal wire, and then bring your thread back behind the gold bead. Now that the chenille is tied in and secured, take close touching wraps until you get behind the bead. Once you get behind the bead, take a couple wraps over that chenille, pull it back, and take a few wraps forward, stopping behind the bead and snipping off your excess. Now it's time to make it buggy. So grab a piece of black saddle hackle, and what I like to do is kind of preen these fibers back. And I take the tip and get just the tip real small, and then I just cut a small little edge to make a triangle tie-in point. This will make it a lot cleaner to tie in and clean up at the end. So now we'll take in this cleaned up area here with that little triangle in, and get it seated right there on the side. And I take a few counter wraps. Sometimes that helps to jump the thread backwards rather than it trying to jump forward over the front of your bead. And then clean up any of these little stragglers before you start making your wraps. So take these thread wraps going away from you until you reach the back, and you want to try and just kind of keep them all sticking straight out. They're going to go forward and backward a little bit, gives it a nice buggy look. Once you've wrapped that saddle hackle all the way back until you reach your tail and your wire, pull the saddle hackle rearward and then start making opposite wraps with your metal wire. As you go through all that saddle hackle that you just wrapped on there, you want to wiggle it back and forth gently. That way you don't trap any of those fibers down. By going opposite, we make the fly a little bit more durable, and by wiggling it through all those fibers, we keep them standing up rather than getting mashed down, so it keeps that nice woolly bugger profile. And stop your wire right behind your bead, and then you just want to take a couple wraps, or you can first, sometimes I like to go ahead and snip this tag end out. And then it's best to try and just pull these fibers back. You can lick your fingers if you need to, but you try and pull these back, that way we don't trap them. And it kind of pushes them backwards as well, cleans up that head of the fly. Once you've got that wire secure, you can go ahead and either snip it or helicopter it to break it free. You can use scissors to cut this wire, but I find that it's just easier and it's just as clean to go in there and just kind of helicopter wiggle it off until it breaks. Now all that's left is to come in and whip finish it, and try your best not to get those hackle fibers caught in there. It can be easy to do. If you get any that are going forward throughout the front, you can also kind of snip them free. This is also a good point to do some last minute cleanup here. I've got a little bit of my saddle hackle that I missed snipping out earlier. And there you have it, a great woolly bugger pattern in a smaller size. Thanks for watching, and tight lines.